Oh, okay. Yeah, cool. I'm a relationship.
If you would please find a seat where we might be sit, and we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning.
I actually applied for this.
Ask Rochelle to bring a bottle of water. Would you ask Rochelle to bring me a bottle of water? Please, speaker, please.
Welcome and good morning, everyone. We are so pleased to have you for our inaugural First Friday event that is hosted here at Indiana Wesleyan University, Cincinnati Education Center. My name is Stephanie Tillman, and I will be doing some introductions this morning, as well as providing a couple of logistical items a little bit later. Our vision with the First Friday Speaker Series is to invite area leaders and those aspiring to leadership in our community to hear several different perspectives on leadership and leading with integrity and character. While seeking speakers, we purposefully chose individuals who have developed outstanding skills enabling them to excel in their individual field or industry. It's our hope that you will be able to hear some thought-provoking ideas as these speakers share some compelling stories with us about their journey into impactful leadership. So we are very appreciative of the fact that you're here this morning. I would like to take a moment before we actually have our speaker and introduce our speaker. The idea of First Fridays actually originated with Mr. Jerry Johnson and his brother Jim. But Jerry is here this morning. Jerry's a corporate rep, as am I, and Natalie Canty with Indiana Wesleyan University out of Fort Wayne. So they actually started that, and it was his idea, and I want to take a moment to introduce Jerry, who has a special connection to make for you.
I don't know if I need this. I'm a former coach. Oh, wait, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Kate and Brandon, you're on the wrong side of the room. So, good morning, Fort Wayne. Sorry we got a little late start because of some traffic issues. But good morning, Cincinnati. We're really blessed. When my brother and I got together a year or so ago, we got together with the idea of building leadership and making people better. And what came of it was, how are we going to get this done? And we met in a room, and out came First Fridays. And we look at First Fridays differently than a lot of other networking events. You've probably heard of BNI. If you go to a BNI group, that's about your business. And you can go to other networking events, and that's about just making greater connections. First Fridays is about you. We want First Fridays every month to be a gift. Some of these folks that you see down on the little screen, they have been coming to First Fridays for a year now. And they've heard from some amazing speakers. And every time you get a gift, you're pretty excited when you open it up. And so each month, and I know our wonderful speaker this morning is going to give you a wonderful gift. And as you open it up and unwrap it, you're going to find some amazing things that are going to add value to your day. So with that, thanks for coming. Fort Wayne, I'm here training, but have a great session. Wayne, I know you're going to knock it out of the park. And we're going to get things things continue to roll here. So we'll hand it back over to Stephanie.
All right. And thanks to Nate and Jerry to get all that to happen. We were talking about that earlier. We talked about that about a month ago. So wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? And they actually pulled that off. So we need better cameras down here in Fort Wayne. We have a nice camera in Cincinnati. So, well, we're glad you're here. How many is this your very first time to come to our First Fridays? All right, super. I thought so because as people were coming in, I was like, I'm not sure I'm in the right place because I don't know anybody. That's awesome. Well, we're going to just dive right into it. You're in for a real treat. It's almost been maybe a year ago that Jan Diaz contacted me and said, you need to meet somebody. You need to get together with this guy. And I said, who is it? It's Wayne Robison. Never heard of him. Okay. So we contacted each other and set up a lunch appointment at Logan's over at Jefferson Point. And I didn't know who he was. I looked at his LinkedIn profile a little bit, but I felt like I was going on a blind date. I didn't know anything about this guy. So I went and started developing about 10 questions that I wanted to find out more about him, and that 10 led into about 25 questions. We had a very great time. I joked before. I'm glad Wayne didn't tell me he was a CPA, CFO. Because I probably wouldn't have gone. Because if there's any of you, I know Jason's in here. Sometimes you're not the most riveting conversationalist. But this guy had the restaurant quiet several times as we got talking. I mean, his hands were going, and this is an exuberant CFO that you're here today. There's a lot of people in this room that inspire me. Wayne is one of those people. He truly inspires me every time we get together. In fact, last month after First Fridays, we met at Local Lounge just to talk about what was going to happen today. And Wayne got into his mode, and you'll know what I talk about later. There was a guy sitting behind Wayne at a high stool at a counter with his laptop, and he just stopped working and just started listening to Wayne. So you guys get a chance to do that, but you don't have to act like you're working. You can just look into that. Wayne comes to us as a business optimization specialist. He turns businesses around. He also is the CFO at the NIC. Carl is here today with us. So he comes up with 40 years plus experience, and he's going to give us a slice of about 40 to 45 minutes in there. If you've got questions, make sure you ask at the end. All right, let's give a warm welcome to Wayne Robison.
Thank you. Is this on? All right. Thank you, Jared. Thank you for that introduction. Jim. Jared, wherever you are. Thank you for that introduction. Jim, thank you for that introduction. It's great to be here. As Jim said, we met a year ago, and he started telling me about First Fridays, and I've been a student of leadership for a long time. Leadership is a passionate subject of mine. And I wanted to learn more, so I started coming, and I've been to every First Friday since, except the very first one. I hadn't heard about it at that point since then. So if you want to be a great leader, it's real easy. Come to First Fridays. Go talk to the previous speakers. Any questions? We can be done here in a minute. Any questions? Okay, so I'm just going to start with a little bit of background here. I hope this doesn't. I practiced this speech, and it took 2 hours and 12 minutes. So we got to figure out how to cut this down, okay? Yes, I'm a CPA by trade, and yes, Jim, I know if you knew that in advance, you wouldn't have had lunch with me, so I'm glad you didn't know. I am a CPA. I do have a background in education. My education is in accounting and finance. My first job out of college was with Price Waterhouse, and I studied and got my CPA certificate, and all of that. A lot of people, when you say CPA, the first thing they think about is taxes. I haven't done a tax. I hire someone else to do my taxes. I am not a tax guy. I don't know tax questions. I just know enough questions to ask, but that's not me. I am a financial guy. A corporate finance, mergers and acquisitions. One company, in fact, the first company I worked for after Price Waterhouse, we did 10 acquisitions in an 18-month period. If you know anything about the M&A world, that is an enormous number of acquisitions. We grew the business 1,000% in the first 3 years I was there. It was ridiculous what we were doing. I've had a lot of experience over my years in C-suite positions, mostly larger companies, $500 million to $3.2 billion companies as the CFO or the COO or the CEO of these companies. Most of them troubled organizations, some rapid growth situations like the person I was talking about, where it was, we literally grew that business 1,000% in 3 years. It was crazy. Others where I took one job one time as the CFO, was we were maybe $500 million in sales, multinational, manufacturing in 3 different countries. They were literally 5 months away from filing bankruptcy. It was a mess, an absolute mess. A private equity group had bought them. They had paid way too much money for this company, found out that they were a year into it, found out that the earnings stream that they thought they acquired was not repeatable in any way. They were on the verge of, they had a $160 million publicly traded subordinated debenture issue debt, basically. They had an interest payment coming due on August 15th. I start May 1st, and their question is, how are we gonna make that payment? And my question is, how are we gonna make that payment, right? So, a large range of different companies. I was the CFO for a small $5 million textile company in Dallas, Texas. I'm 4th generation native to Los Angeles. I'm the oldest of 9 kids. I've moved around a lot. I've been in virtually every corner of this country, and have enjoyed my career immensely. So all of that to say, I've got experience with rapid growth companies. I've got experience with rapid declining companies. I've got experience turning businesses around, and that led to today's challenge. How do I translate 30 years of experience into a 38-minute talk? Right? Remember the title today. What does leadership have to do with it? Over the years, as I've progressed through my career and dealt with various companies, I'm finding out more and more, and I did not know this at the beginning. I wish someone, maybe they told me. I did, when I was young and full of myself. I didn't listen to a lot of people, I wish I knew this at the beginning. Leadership has everything to do with it, right? Everything to do with it. Hang on before I jump there. The high growth companies, the turnaround companies, every single time, if you're trying to, I've done a lot of turnarounds. I've done really hard turnarounds. That's the bulk of my career is in turnarounds. Every single time, there's a reason they're in that position. It didn't happen by accident most of the time. It didn't happen, I mean, there's a few. Some people have asked me, can any business be turned around? Well, my quick answer was yes. The fact is, there are some that can't. Blockbuster couldn't be saved. Right? Disruptive technology comes along and just obliterates your industry. That happens, right? On the other hand, Kodak could have been saved because they invented the disruptive technology that obliterated the industry and hid it. Right? Over and over and over again, you find that apart from those few, there are some that can't be saved. Apart from those few, it absolutely can be saved, and it's an issue of leadership. So I'm jumping fast here so we can get through this, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end, but there are common elements that I have assimilated in my years of underperforming companies, all right? And I've tried to summarize it into 4 bullets here. These are common things that you find over and over and over again in companies that are not performing. A lack of vision, and that's not really true, it's a lack of common vision, all right? That word common is important in here, and I'm going to unpack these in a second. A lack of common vision, a lack of visibility, I'm going to explain that here in a second. Misunderstanding of previous successes, all right, we're going to talk about that in a second. And a shoot, aim, ready approach, okay? Let's unpack these a minute. Common vision. I tell people all the time, anybody and I dare say everybody in this room can get in the car and end up at the Pacific Ocean. Everybody in the room. All you have to do is drive west, right? You'll find it. The real question is, do you end up in LA or in Seattle? And that's a 2,500 mile miss, right? Anybody can go a direction. Are you going to the right destination? Having a common vision is everybody is after the same destination, all right? We have to define success. Reaching the Pacific Ocean is not the definition of success in that analogy, right? Reaching Seattle is the definition of success. So when we get in the car and start driving, how many people on your team heading towards LA? They're going west. We're all going west. We're growing this company. Our objective is growth, right? I had a client one time, we were talking about stuff, and I asked, what is the definition of success? 100% customer satisfaction. Excellent. It's a great goal. Let's face it, it'll never happen, right? 100% of anything's nirvana. It's not going to happen. But for a moment, let's accept it at face value and start constructing scenarios. You know, it costs this much to get 90% customer satisfaction, right? It costs this much to get 95% customer satisfaction. It costs this much to get 98% customer satisfaction. You can't spend enough money to get 100, right? And so my question to you, Mr. Business Owner, is your goal is 100% customer satisfaction. If you lose $1 million next year doing it, will you call that success? Real simple. And what I found is over and over and over again, everybody has a vision statement. Everybody has a mission statement. We spent the 80s and 90s going crazy figuring out how to write mission statements, right? Over and over again, everybody has them. But when you start to ask salient questions about this scenario, and this scenario, is that still a success in your mind? They start to fall apart, okay? The definition of success for a business can very rarely be one thing. It's probably a tripod, or it's probably 3 to 5 things, but it's probably 3, right? Some sort of growth objective, some sort of profit objective, and some sort of culture objective, right? Without leadership, we can't bring that together and create this three-legged stool that everyone buys into. Right? I've got a client right now. They're a brand new company, fairly new. They're 3 years old. They're going through their scale-up phase. Okay, they've got a little bit of revenue, but now they're getting ready to scale. They just got Series A funding. Okay, and they're going from 4 employees to 32. They just hired number 30. They've got 2 more to add. All right, and when I say that, I'm saying in 6 months. They went from 4 to 30 in 6 months, right? Lisa's here. We had a fun experience back in 2008, I think it was. We went from 40. We were a 40 employee company. We won a new contract. We had to hire 90 people in 90 days and accomplish the transitional portion of that contract within that 90-day period. It was crazy, right? But one thing we learned, that every single time you add a person, your culture changes, even if you don't want it to, right? Every single time. So if you don't have a strong culture statement, if you don't have a strong statement of core values and core beliefs, you're not going to be able to keep control of that culture as you go forward, right? Leadership is defining success, not only who we are, not only where we're going to go, but how we want to get there, right? How we want to get there. The ends don't justify the means. I know companies here in town that they are eminently successful if profit is all you count. But they can't keep employees longer than 6 months. right? How much more successful could they be if they had a different culture that allowed employees to stay 3 to 5 years? Wow! They wouldn't have to retrain, they wouldn't have to re-educate, they wouldn't have to recruit, they wouldn't have to, all that money they're wasting, right? But that's not their culture. Their culture is churn and burn. Everyone's nodding heads, so you all know what I'm talking about, right? What does leadership have to do with it? A common vision that everyone is a part of. This client I was telling you about that just got their Series A funding, they had their very first strategic planning meeting a week and a half ago. First time ever, right? 8 people on leadership. 6 people on leadership. We sat around the room and they talked for 2 hours. This person's definition of success was all about revenue. And this person's definition of success was all about culture. They had to find a way to get together to understand that sometimes succeeding in revenue or profit injures your progress in culture. And sometimes succeeding in culture and profit injures your process to revenue. And sometimes, right, it takes a balance. It takes open communication. It takes a process to set out and define, I'm willing to give up 100% on this in order to get this up from 50 to 90. Common vision where everyone agrees. Visibility. Now, by talking about visibility, I'm talking about the ability to keep track of what's going on inside your organization. All right, visibility. If you're mapping out, if your definition of success is Seattle, you can map a path that gets you there a lot of ways, right? Take Route 70, go to Flagstaff, head up to Route 80, go out to San Francisco, head up Route 5, and end up in Seattle. Or you can go right up Route 90, cut across the north. There's a lot of ways to get there, right? And just because I want to go that way doesn't mean you should. We can take city streets. We can take country roads. We can take the scenic tour, right? Visibility allows us to determine, once the map is settled, how are we progressing? Did we average, in order to get to Seattle, and to get there a certain day, guess what? We have to average a certain number of miles per hour today to get there. And if that target is 50, how do we know if we're on track? Do we have any reporting that says, yesterday we only averaged 44.6? And the day before, we averaged 58.3. And the day before, we averaged 32. Not that any of those numbers are wrong, but are you keeping track of your progress? Visibility is allowing you to see what's going on inside your organization. A client I'm working with right now, we had a customer that has a hard deadline on when they get their product because that is integral into the construction of a building. They have to have their products on this date, and if they don't, this construction doesn't happen. So I went out to the plant and asked, okay, they've got 5 orders on the floor. What's the status of these 5 jobs? Give me reliable delivery days. For 3 days, they sat in a conference room with pieces of paper and adding things up and still didn't have the answer. That's a lack of visibility. Ease of access to data. Right? You have to have reliable information, and you have to have it timely. In other words, the information you get has to be right. You have to trust it, but you also have to get it on time. If it takes you more than 5 days to close your books, there's a problem. You don't have easy access, reliable information on a timely basis. Okay? Ease of access. Everyone needs to be able to get it, right? In today's day and age, if you don't have your scorecard right here and have it updated every single evening, there's a problem. If you don't have a scorecard, there's a problem, right? Teresa? If you don't have a scorecard, there's a problem. Right? And then meaningful metrics, speaking of scorecard, understood by all. I was working with a client 3 or 4 years ago, and we were putting together a scorecard. And one of the key measures, probably common for most people, is new orders. The value of new orders coming in on a weekly basis. Okay, so we set up a system, all the team members started reporting every week what their new orders were. We started measuring it, we started graphing it, started publishing it. Everyone could see it. Only this salesperson routinely had 40% of their new orders canceled before production. And this salesman had 3%. What was going on? They defined an order differently. This person defined an order as when a customer said, yeah, send me some information on that. And this person defined an order when the contract was signed and the deposit was made. Right? Understood by all. Mean the same thing, right? It's not enough to have metrics. You must define them. I do this exercise a lot with clients. When you say this, does it mean that, or that? It's amazing how many times people interpret it differently. And the process of defining your measures is just as important as the process of reporting them. Okay? Over and over again, when you see companies that don't have visibility in the organization, I can just assure you they're either in or headed for a turnaround. Reasons for previous success. Now, this is probably the most insidious one of them all, frankly. And we used to have a book table up here. What happened to it? We used to have a book table up here, and people could come and borrow books and all of that. And there's a book called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Next month.
Okay. It's a great book. I don't know if you've seen it or read it, but it's a great book. But one of the most interesting things about previous success is you start to believe your own hype. And you start to take credit for things that had nothing to do with you. Right? And you start to get full of your success. And there are times where the reason you're successful is because of the actions you took. Right? You were germane to the solution, and you delivered a result. On the other hand, there are times where it's simply the condition of the market. I mean, if you're a stockbroker, you better be making money today, right? Because if you can't be making money now, you're probably in the wrong line of business, right? Making a lot of money as a stockbroker in this environment does not mean you're a good stockbroker. But if you keep telling yourself how successful you are, guess what? There's this thing called brainwashing. And you start to believe it. And you start to believe it. So I had a company I worked with one time. We were, we actually bid on and won a large contract. It was disruptive to our business. It was transformative to our business, right? And so our business was, that business was very successful, and people would come and ask the leadership of that business, why are you so successful? What's the key to your success? And we talked about how hard we worked, and actually gave a lot of credit to one of the people on the team who focused on understanding the client needs, the specific space they were having to bid on, and working incessantly to deliver a high quality proposal and then to produce a high quality product. And we said that for years. And 5 years later, that client came along and announced they're not renewing the contract. Had a quality slip? No. Had that person gone? No. Did we understand less about the business? No. Where did they take it? To a company that knew nothing about the business. What? How's that possible? Were they cheaper? No. Was their quality better? No. We had no idea, I shouldn't say that. We would not face up to the fact that the reason we got that contract was because we were certified by the federal government as a disadvantaged business. And it had nothing to do with our own competence. It had to do with the designation we had. And when we outgrew that designation, we were no longer the customer of choice. We weren't prepared for that event because we believed our own press and bought our own lies and did not do the things we needed to do to make sure we were the experts we claimed to be. Right? One of the things that happens to us all the time is we deceive ourselves. There's a different, deception. I tell people this a lot. For me, the definition of deception, I'm not talking about Webster's, but the definition of deception is being wrong and not knowing it. I mean, if you're wrong and you know it, you're a fraudster, right? You're a liar, whatever, right? If you're wrong and you know it, well, you're pulling one over on me. But if you're wrong and not knowing it, if you're deceived, you're wrong and not knowing it, you can be as genuine as the day is long. Because you believe it to be true. You're just deceived. The most interesting part about that is, since you're wrong, and since you don't know it, there's no way for that to be uncovered unless someone else points it out. That's why it takes a team. That's why it takes vulnerability, right? You have to acid test all of these assumptions you're making. You have to, how many of you are married? I have to let my wife tell me I'm wrong occasionally. I don't let it happen too often, but it doesn't feel good when she tells me I'm wrong, right? Sometimes I don't believe her. But over time, I eventually learn I was wrong. I just didn't realize, right? Sometimes we're wrong. If you want to repeat the pattern of success, you have to subject the reasons for success to the analysis of those around you. And then what I call the shiny object syndrome, right? The shoot, aim, ready approach. One of the things leaders do, one of the mistakes leaders make is chasing shiny objects, right? And let's face it, as leaders, it's real easy for us to say, let's pursue this, all right? And then a whole team of people deploy, plan, act, move, right? And they're pursuing that. Well, for the leader, that's off his to-do list, or her to-do list, right? No longer is she trying to figure out the next strategy. It's already figured out and being deployed. So now it's time to come up with a new one. We're always chasing those shiny objects, right? We're always after the next. Scott last week talked about, how many were here last week? Last week, one of the questions Scott got was what's one of the biggest mistakes leaders make? What's the most common mistakes leaders make? And he said, going for the quick fix. Oh my gosh, is that so true, right? Going for the quick fix, right? If you really want to be an effective leader, spend time doing analysis. I had a client one time, I met with them. I met with the owner of this company, and I'd never met him before. We're sitting at Starbucks someplace, never met him before. Just started asking him a few questions. How long you been in business? 19 years. How many employees you got? 520 or whatever it was. How many locations you've got? 52. Okay. Just starting to get an understanding of what's your sales? I'm not sure. Okay. How much money did you make last year? I don't really know. How much debt do you have? I don't know. What was on your tax return? And he just looked at me and he's like, did it get hot in here or what? He didn't know. He didn't know. He didn't have metrics. Wasn't paying attention, right? So I started working with them. I looked at their books. I started working with them and realized, and hold a leadership meeting with, there were actually 5 people in leadership, and pronounced to them, you're 30 days away from filing bankruptcy. If we don't fix this in the next 30 days, it's happened. Why? Now, I tell you, they knew they were in bad shape. Nobody knew that it was that bad, right? And so the COO, we're having further conversations, and the COO says, well, we're just about to embark on deploying, on implementing a whole new strategy on how we deploy labor at every one of our locations. Oh, good. let's hear more about it. He starts telling me about it. And I said, so back up a minute. Why are we in the shape we're in? This person said it's labor. This person said it's customer satisfaction. This person said, right? I have 5 answers. Why are we? This person said it's his fault. Right? The owner spends too much money. That was one of the people. The owner spends too much money. Okay. Why are we in the shape? And I let him go on. I said, can I just say, after having spent some time here, the reason you're in this position is because not once in your 19 years of experience have you used, listen to this, have you used the lens of competent financial analysis in your decision-making process. We all go through a process to make decisions. Sometimes our gut rules, sometimes our emotion rules, right? Sometimes our desire for growth, our ego rules. But not once had they used the lens of competent financial analysis. I said, let's take a look at this decision you just made to redeploy labor. Did you do an analysis on it? Well, of course we did. Let me see it. Pulled out a sheet of paper. I've done one sheet of paper. It had some names here, had a little chart here, 4 columns by 3 rows, and then it had some numbers down here. I said, okay. I read it. I asked, does this mean this? Yeah. Does this mean that? Yeah. Does this mean? Yeah. And then I just started, I drew up my own little chart and started writing numbers down. And I said, so, using your analysis, this is going to increase the cost of operations $600,000 a year. We're 30 days away from bankruptcy. That's the plan, right? That's the intended result of this decision. What? No. Shoot holes in it. Where's it wrong? Right? They had not done enough analysis. They simply acted. They simply acted. They hadn't put a plan together. They hadn't thought through how they were going to deploy it. They just acted. You must start with analysis, and you must create a plan. That's what leadership has to do with it. Leadership says, whoa, let's analyze this. Whoa, let's have a good plan. Let's map our course to Seattle. Let's map our course. Let's figure out what the milestones are. Where are we spending the first night? Where are we filling up with gas? What sightseeing opportunities are we going to have along the way? Map it out. Plan. The client that couldn't give me the delivery dates, remember I was talking about them? I said, if you guys would just spend 2 hours a day, 2 hours a week planning the production cycle for all of these jobs, you'll save 200 hours of execution time out in the plan. But you're not planning. Act. And let's face it, a lot of people, how many of you have been in a meeting week after week after week where you talk about the same thing time after time after time, and then you break huddle, and you keep doing the same old things, right? Act. Act. Jeff Bezos is famous for saying, we launch at 70%, right? If you analyze and plan, you can eventually get to paralysis by analysis. You've heard that, right? At some point, get off your keisters and act. Take action. But then don't stop there. Companies that act forget to measure. And companies that measure, don't forget to measure, don't achieve. All right? So the shiny object syndrome, the quick fix syndrome, the one and done approach is a common element to companies that are struggling or in trouble and need to be turned around. So I mentioned those 4 things to give you things to think about in your own organizations, in your own approaches. What does leadership have to do with it? In my opinion, everything, okay? So I want to give you a few sound bites and then I'm going to let you go. This is not mine. Bill Heigl said this at a Global Leadership Summit several years ago. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but regardless of what you think of Bill and Willow Creek and that whole thing, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here. Leadership is the art of moving people and organizations from here to there. That only happens if you're capable of inspiring people to move. If you know where here is, and if you know where there is. right? You have to have a vision. You have to have a plan. And then leadership is all about inspiring people, coaching people, encouraging people to go from here to there. Okay? Nobody, but let's say it this way. You're either growing or dying, right? There's only one way to coast, downhill, right? If you try to coast on level ground, you'll eventually come to a stop. There's only one way to coast, downhill. And even if you're not trying to grow, your competitors are. So if you're just trying to maintain, your competitors will outpace you and you will die. Leadership is moving from here to there. This is one I've used at a lot of places. Transparency breeds trust. Trust breeds effort. And effort in the right direction breeds results. The company that was 30 days away from bankruptcy, nobody knew, everyone knew it was bad, they didn't know it was that bad. There was a lack of transparency. They had been in business 19 years, and nobody in the middle management or leadership ranks had ever seen a financial statement. Ever. In fact, the owner only ever saw financial statements once a year when his tax returns were done. That's insane. But you know the most common response I get when I talk about this? I can't show people how much I make. They'll want raises. Right? I mean, I grew up in the union days, right? The management couldn't tell a union how much we had to keep 7 cents a books. I mean, you know what I mean? You can't show them the truth. Transparency. You want results? It starts back here. Transparency is being open and honest about it. What are your goals? What's your mission? Standing up and taking responsibility for it. Man, I screwed that up. That's on me. Let's rally together and see what we can do to fix that. That's on me. I'm sorry. Right? Transparency is admitting and acknowledging those things. Right? Transparency is not setting false deadlines. Yeah, but if I tell him to have it done on Wednesday, I know he'll push it to the last minute and not get it done. Transparency is, and my response to that is, they know you're already putting 2 days of cushion in there anyway. Right? Transparency is eliminating the false deadlines. Open, honest. And if that person's not performing, move them out. Transparent. We had oh my gosh, we're about out of time. There's a great story that I'm just going to run out of time to tell, but a situation where we had our largest client came in for a meeting. We had 14 of us and 8 of them, I think it was, in a room, 2-day meeting where we're having this discussion where we're going back and forth about the process and projects and da-da-da, and the meeting just went awful. Just went awful. After 2 days, we thanked the client for their time, attention, let them go, and I asked all of our team to stay. Now, we were in Baltimore, and most of the people didn't live there. They were wanting to catch flights, and I'm like, can you believe that? And just real simply said, you all know me well. We've gotten to know each other quite well. You know I'm not given to rashness. You know I'm not given to harshness. You know my character. This went poorly. This is completely unacceptable, and this shall never happen again. I can go into a lot of detail about that situation. It was very fascinating. But do you know, because we had been practicing this for years, every person on that team stood up to a person. You know what happens in those situations, right? Sally blames Fred. Fred blames John. John blames Jane. Right? There's always someone else's fault that I didn't get this done. Every person in that room stood up one at a time and said, this is on me. We can do better. We'll fix this. And you know, we never had that problem again. What you repeat, you remember. This is something I work on with my grandson every day. You ever do flashcards? Why? Does your boy not know what 3 + 5 is? Of Or does your girl know what 2 + 2 is? Of course she does. Why do you keep doing these flashcards over and over and over? Because what you repeat, you remember, right? We used to say practice makes perfect. Doesn't really. If I practice a bad golf swing, and I just practice it every day, when I get on the golf course, I'm gonna have a bad golf swing, right? But what I repeat, if it's a bad golf swing, that's what I'm gonna remember. And when I get into the heat of the situation, that's what's gonna come out, right? Do you have a vision? How often do you repeat it? I get leaders telling me all the time, I've told them where we're going. Why do they keep saying nobody knows which way we're going? I've told them. I say, how many times? Obviously not enough. Research, Carl taught me this a while back, research indicates you have to say something 8 times before someone actually registers it. We're not even talking about remembering yet, right? You have to say something 8 times before it gets past the veil and into the psyche. What you repeat, you remember. If you have a vision, repeat it till they repeat it, right? Over and over and over and over. And then another one of my favorites, amateurs practice till they get it right. Professionals practice till they can't get it wrong. How do you want to approach your leadership development? Amateurish or professional? You know what the difference between Phil Mickelson and I are? Other than the fact that I'm much better looking? At the end of his day, every single day, he sets up to hit 100 putts in a row. He's a world-class putter. When I go to the golf course, I put 3 balls down, I take 3 swings, I'm good to go. Right? Oops, I'm sorry. What did I do? Okay, thank you. What? Phil practices till he can't get it wrong. When you're in a high-pressure situation, sitting in Augusta on the 18th green, 6,000 people sitting in the stands looking at you, whispering about you, and you're standing there, and the green is lightning fast, and it's got a 12-foot break. And he makes it. And he makes it. And he makes it, and he makes it, and he makes it, and he makes it, and he makes it. Over and over again. What's the difference, besides the fact that he's just that skilled? Practice. Professional effort. He puts the effort in to be good, right? How do you want to approach leadership? One of the things I did 10 years ago was when I hired myself a coach. I don't care who it is. But are you serious about improving your leadership skills? Do things like First Fridays. Do things like global leadership. But do things proactively, week in and week out, that actually force you to hone your leadership skills. For me, it was, I went and hired somebody. I met with him, for a while I was meeting with him every other week. I realized how much I was missing, right? And over time, that's now reduced some, and it's more like once a quarter now. But after all this time, I'm still submitting myself to someone else to learn about leadership, right? And then, this is probably what happened to most of you today. Leaders will sift through a lot of dirt to find a nugget of gold. What you repeat, you remember, right? I found myself guilty of this. I went to this conference, and people asked me, what did you think of the conference? It was terrible. It was awful. This, and they were focused on this, and they should have been talking about that, and this, and that. And my wife, God bless her, said to me, did you learn anything? I said, yeah, I had 2 takeaways. Right? What I repeat, I remember. If I say 100 times it was terrible, I'm going to believe it was terrible, and I'm going to tell everyone else it was terrible. But if I say, I went to that conference and came away with 2 nuggets of gold, and if I say that 100 times, and if I can repeat what those nuggets of gold were over and over and over and over and over and over again, I'm never going to forget it. I'm going to keep repeating it until I can't get it wrong. I'm going to skip this and go straight to Q&A. Thank you for your time. What does leadership have to do with it? In my opinion, everything starts and everything ends with leadership. There's lots of stuff in the middle. There's planning, analysis, there's execution, results matter. People talk about activities all the time. What'd you do today? 75 sales calls, So what? Did it result in anything? Right? Not every activity results in something that moment, but you have activity only takes you so far. You have to have results. Results matter. People matter. That's really cheese. I skipped it. I may as well. Growth matters. If you're not growing, you're dying, right? Approach matters, right? The company that's a churn and burn company that can't keep people, right? Versus the company that's a good high culture company, maybe gave up a point of profitability, but is still eminently successful that people are wanting to go work for, right? People matter. If you ever want to be bigger than yourself, I just gave an interview on this earlier this week. If you ever want to be bigger than yourself, you have to rely on others, right? Every leader eventually faces, unless you're a solopreneur, eventually faces their capacity limit. And at some point, your business grows beyond your ability to control every decision, right? To deliver every product, to check every piece of quality. At some point it goes beyond, you have to rely on others. So how you interact with and relate with and deal with people matters. People matter. And then results matter. Okay, I'll try to shut up. Questions? Wow. Stunned silence, how's that? Well, thank you for your time. It was great to see you. I'll stick around for a little bit afterwards.